Hello and welcome to our channel. In this AI-generated list, we uncover the truth behind some of the most shocking conspiracies in history. Today, we're counting down the top 10 conspiracies that ended up being true, from false justifications for war to illegal surveillance and human experimentation. These events have had a significant impact on American history and continue to shape our understanding of government secrecy and accountability. Before we get started, make sure to hit the like button and be sure to subscribe if you want to see more AI-generated lists. So, without further ado, let's begin the countdown. Number 10. The Gulf of Tonkin Incident. On August 2, 1964, the U.S. government claimed that North Vietnamese boats had attacked U.S. ships in the Gulf of Tonkin, but it was later revealed that the attack never happened. This false claim was used to justify increased military intervention in Vietnam, leading to one of the deadliest and most divisive conflicts in American history. President Lyndon B. Johnson was the one who used this incident as a justification for escalating military intervention in Vietnam. The outcome was a military escalation in Vietnam and a wave of anti-war sentiment in the U.S. Number 9. The National Security Agency's PRISM program. In 2013, whistleblower Edward Snowden revealed that the NSA had been secretly collecting data on millions of American citizens' phone and internet communications without their knowledge or consent. The program was authorized by President George W. Bush and carried out by the NSA, specifically by Keith Alexander, who was the director of the NSA at the time. The outcome was a loss of trust in the government and raised important questions about the balance between national security and personal freedom. Number 8. The CIA's use of black sites for the detention and interrogation of suspected terrorists. These secret locations, outside of the U.S., were used to conduct interrogations that included the use of torture on suspected terrorists. The methods used were widely considered to be inhumane and a violation of international law. The program was authorized by President George W. Bush and carried out by the CIA, specifically by Jose Rodriguez, who was the head of the CIA's National Clandestine Service at the time. The outcome was a loss of trust in government and condemnation from human rights organizations. Number 7. The government's knowledge of and failure to act on intelligence about the 9/11 attacks prior to the event. Several government agencies had received warnings about the potential for terrorist attacks, but failed to take action to prevent them. In particular, the CIA had information about two of the hijackers, Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi, who were being tracked by the agency as early as 1999. However, the CIA failed to notify the FBI or other agencies about the men, and they were able to enter the U.S. and participate in the 9/11 attacks. Additionally, the FBI had received a memo from an agent in Phoenix, Arizona warning about the potential for terrorist attacks using airplanes, but the memo was not acted upon. Furthermore, the National Security Agency intercepted several messages that could have been used to prevent the 9/11 attacks, but they failed to act on them as well. The outcome was the tragic loss of nearly 3,000 lives and a fundamental shift in U.S. foreign policy, which led to the formation of the 9/11 Commission. A body that was formed to investigate the attacks. It was found out that the government had multiple failures in communication and coordination among several government agencies, including the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA, which if acted upon could have prevented the attacks. Number 6. The FBI's COINTELPRO program. From 1956 to 1971, the FBI targeted political activists and organizations, including Martin Luther King Jr. and the Black Panthers, with surveillance, infiltration, and other tactics. The program's goal was to disrupt and neutralize political dissidents and civil rights activists. The program was directed by J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director at that time. The outcome was a chilling effect on political dissent and civil rights activism in the U.S., and many individuals and organizations targeted by the program suffered long-term harm as a result. Number 5. The U.S. government's role in overthrowing democratically elected governments in Iran and Guatemala in the 1950s. The CIA orchestrated coups in these countries to install leaders who were more favorable to U.S. interests. The operation in Iran, known as Operation Ajax, was orchestrated by Kermit Roosevelt Jr., who was a CIA operative, with the goal of removing Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh from power. The reason behind this was Mossadegh's decision to nationalize the oil industry, which threatened the interests of U.S. and British oil companies. The operation was successful, and the Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was installed as the leader of Iran. This led to a long period of authoritarian rule and repression in Iran, which contributed to the Islamic Revolution in 1979. In Guatemala, the operation was orchestrated by Jacob Esterline, a CIA operative, with the goal of removing Guatemala's democratically elected president Jacobo Arbenz from power. The reason behind this was Arben's decision to implement land reforms that threatened the interests of the United Fruit Company, a U.S.-based multinational corporation. The operation was successful, and a series of military dictators took power in Guatemala, leading to a period of repression and human rights abuses. The outcome of these operations was political instability, human rights abuses, and long-term negative effects on the country's democratic development. In Iran, the Islamic Republic was established, and the country has been under authoritarian rule since then, with a complex political system that includes elements of democracy and theocracy. Number 4. The Tuskegee Syphilis Experiment. The U.S. Public Health Service withheld treatment from hundreds of African American men with syphilis for decades in order to study the progression of the disease. The study was conducted by the U.S. Public Health Service, specifically the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the Tuskegee Institute. Dr. John Cutler was the lead researcher for the study, and Dr. Talia Farrell Clark was the director of the Tuskegee Health Benefit Program. The experiment was conducted from 1932 to 1972 and was motivated by the belief that syphilis was more prevalent among African Americans and that the disease progressed differently in them than in whites. The men were not informed of the true nature of the study and were led to believe that they were receiving treatment for bad blood, a term used to describe a variety of ailments. They were never told they had syphilis, and were denied treatment even after penicillin, a known cure for syphilis, became available. The study was exposed by a whistleblower, Peter Buxton, a public health service investigator, in 1972, after he leaked the information to the press. The outcome was a public outrage and the eventual compensation of the men and their families. Number 3. The CIA's MKUltra Mind Control Program. The program aimed to develop techniques for interrogation and espionage using drugs, hypnosis, and other methods. The program was run by the CIA's Technical Services staff, headed by Dr. Sidney Gottlieb. The program involved many subprojects and numerous individuals, including Dr. Ewan Cameron and Dr. Harris Isbell. This program was exposed in the 1970s due to a series of Freedom of Information Act requests filed by John Marks, a journalist, and lawsuits filed by the victims and their families. The outcome was a public scandal and the eventual termination of the program. Number 2. The Iran-Contra Affair. The U.S. government illegally sold arms to Iran and used the proceeds to fund anti-Sandinista rebels in Nicaragua. The affair involved several high-ranking government officials, including Oliver North, who was a National Security Council staff member, John Poindexter, who was the National Security Advisor, and Ronald Reagan, who was the president at the time. The outcome was a public scandal, and several officials were convicted of charges related to the affair. Number 1. The government's use of enhanced interrogation techniques such as waterboarding on suspected terrorists following the 9/11 attacks. These methods, widely considered to be torture, were used in a CIA program that was later deemed to be ineffective and illegal. The program was authorized by President George W. Bush and carried out by the CIA, specifically by James Mitchell and Bruce Jessen, who were contractors and architects of the program. The outcome was a public scandal and condemnation from human rights organizations. And that concludes our countdown of the top 10 conspiracies that ended up being true, from the Gulf of Tonkin incident to the CIA's mind control experiments. These events have challenged our trust in those in power and have raised important questions about government accountability and transparency. We hope you found this countdown informative and thought-provoking. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more content like this, and let us know in the comments which conspiracy you found the most shocking. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.